Sangbreeta Moitra is TEDx award-winning speaker on change, transformation, and human behavior. She's the founder of Transform Exponential, and her clients include Booking.com, ING Bank, Ernst&Young, and more. She has been speaking across the world at conferences and company summits which gather thousands of people. I met her in Toastmasters a few years ago, and I'm truly excited to know from her firsthand how can we all build such a successful career as a speaker in such a short period of time and reach the big stages. Stay with me and let's welcome Sangbreeta Moitra. Hi, Sangbreeta. It's such a pleasure to have you here with me today in this very sunny day here in this part of the world. And I want to have this conversation with you because you are someone who I know from not so long. And I know that you have been starting this career as a speaker and having your voice out there that is so consistently and so determined that now you are reaching big stages where your voice is creating a huge impact. So you're becoming a true role model for all of us women, not only women, but men out there. However, let's get back to the beginning and start from the beginning. And I would like to ask you first, how did you get into the public speaking arena?
I think at the age of 5. I started public speaking at the age of 5. And few people know this about me, but I've been doing competitive public speaking since I was 5 years old. Actually, no, since I was 4 years old. It's something I started in kindergarten, and it's been something that I always credit my English teachers in primary school to be the ones to see something in me and encourage me. But yeah, I was this random Indian kid in some random town in India doing Shakespeare and Franz Roman's Countrymen and John F. Kennedy speeches and Martin Luther King speeches at a very young age. It's just something that I was drawn to. And as a child, I think, of course, my personality was so different that sometimes I laugh about it. I was a lot more, my personality was not as outgoing as I am now. But I do remember that the moments that I felt most alive was when I would practice with my English teachers and when I would compete in those elocution and debate competitions. So it's been a part of my life, my entire life. I dropped it off when I had to, because in India, education is a very big deal. So once I was preparing for my exams and everything as I grew older into my older teens, I dropped it off completely. And then when I came when I came to the Netherlands, I graduated my master's degree here. And when I started working, that's when a friend of actually Sabi and I know each other from college, a university in Holland, and he told me about this random place called Toastmasters. So basically, Toastmasters was a lovely place for me to rekindle my hobby. And it was also a place for me to just enjoy myself in the company of people who have aligned values. And it was a good place to realize and discover what I truly enjoy doing, what makes me feel fulfilled, and then take life from there.
That's amazing because I know you from Toastmasters. So we are here also promoting Toastmasters because we love Toastmasters family and it's the foundation for everything we do right now. Not everything, but most of it. Yeah. But this background of starting speaking when you were 5, so now it explains a lot, lady. So it was in the blood. It was meant to be. That's awesome, but that's not let's not allow this to demotivate others thinking
no, it's just my story.
Yeah, that they need to have this on their blood because as we know, speaking is a skill, and as a skill, the good news about it is that it can be learned, so everybody can learn. However, you need to learn. And did you have any plan? So then you found Toastmasters. You're ready doing your business. You work in a corporate world. Yeah. And when you started, when was that you connected this idea, let's put that way, that you said, okay, here I have an opportunity
Yeah.
to go on stage and bring my voice, and through my work start creating this amazing impact that you are
Yeah.
creating.
It never starts with wanting to be a speaker, actually. Well, also, I'd like to add before I finish that, before I start with this new point, I started at 5, but it doesn't mean that I was just born that way. I had to learn from scratch. So whatever people see on stage now, or whatever they see on my paycheck now, is the experience I've built from a very, very young age, every single day of regular intensive training. So it took regular intensive training to get to where I am, and I still don't think I'm even 50% of where I can be. So we are work in progress, I think, till we die. So I'm still a very much a work in progress, but it does say that yes, I put in a lot more years than perhaps the average Joe to invest in my communication. As for when did the idea start, I truly believe that for me, it wasn't that I want to be a speaker, but what actually happened was I was working on content. I had a full-time corporate job. It was only a year ago that I quit my full-time corporate career. And up until that point, I was noticing a lot of loopholes, a lot of black holes in the world of change and transformation. That's my space. And I always wanted to incorporate education and knowledge from human behavior and transforming the world of change, and how organizations, people, leaders can future-proof their legacy. That's what was really fascinating to me. And I started building content around it. And what happened is whenever I would give talks at events, at first this was just a hobby in the Netherlands. I was very much into my full-time corporate career. I was a global manager and I was very happy with it. I was working in a really great company. So no, I did not have a bad boss. I didn't have a bad company. I had a great set of managers, and like the people in that corporate company, I'm always thankful for, because I think it's their knowledge that has shaped me. So I didn't have the tragic corporate career, but I did start noticing loopholes, and that's when I started creating my content. Every time I would give talks, I noticed a lot of people would want to know more, and they started inviting me to their companies, even in the smallest of platforms. I mean, I was invited to small little stages with maybe 10, 15, 20 people in the room, but then somehow people wanted to know more, and they would ask me, what's your website? Where can we find more? I said, I don't have a website. I mean, these are just my ideas, because I noticed these black holes in the system. And then people wanted to know more and more. Alongside, I started winning a lot of awards in Toastmasters. Of course, that increases your popularity. And then in 2017, June, I won the TEDx award for my TEDx talk. That, of course, got people rather interested. And then, I think the way it all grew was, number one, I had an idea that I wanted to share. So I always tell people, if you just want to be a speaker, it's not going to work, unfortunately, because you have to have an idea that can change people's mindset, that can change people's performance or life, bring positive impact to it. And then you start from there. If you only want to be a speaker, then you're so focused on yourself, you can never focus on the people you serve. So start from the right, authentic point of impact.
Yes, and you said something very important there for me, because I've been training some women in corporation, and interestingly enough, I asked them, do you see yourself as a voice inside of your company? And most of them, unfortunately, said no. That they were, and some said, I'm not interested. And I felt that's very sad, because it's an opportunity when you're able to communicate in your environment that you have ideas, because these ideas that you mentioned to us, I believe they come from the point where you see where you can give your input and change and contribute for the improvement of the environment. And I'm sure they do see things as well where their input could contribute to improve their environment. But when they don't see themselves as a voice, so then is an opportunity lost and missed there. And back to what you said about, if you want just being a speaker, and is like an empty bag, right?
Yeah,
You need
I think
this
so. That's
bag.
my opinion. Yeah,
Yeah, no, but it's true. You have to have the content,
yeah.
because it is the content that will sustain you and sustain your message.
Yeah.
However, that on that level, I believe everybody has something. What they need is to believe that this something that they have is worth sharing. And this is why I say, like, every voice matters, every story needs to be told, but you have to believe it in the first place, and then, as you said very well, craft it, practice, practice, and practice. On that note, in your own experience, why you come from the corporate world and you made a turn now, or now you work independently, you have your company, I know, Transform Exponential. And for your perspective, why other professionals like you should consider it is, I gave my opinion, but should consider investing on their communication skills, investing on having a clear message.
What do you mean by other professionals like me? I'm not too sure.
Yes, professionals like you. Yeah, I say other professionals. I'm consider the two of us here other
If you mean
professionals.
speakers or you mean just general corporate members?
General.
Um,
Everybody who is a professional in these days.
right. So the number one thing is, I think, invest really in purely in communication skills. That's number one. Public speaking is a form of communication. But number one is to be able to understand how to communicate, to be able to understand how to connect to people, how to build rapport, how to build dialogue, how to establish trust. Once you can ace that, public speaking becomes much easier. I mean, you've done trainings as well. You might have noticed that even people with 30 plus years of experience who work in extremely customer centric organizations still don't know how to establish rapport and build dialogue and truly connect to the heart and mind of people. They're more obsessed with, here's my product, here's the three things I'd like to offer you, here are all the choices that we have that you can buy from us. We are so pushy on people that we've forgotten how to communicate. So I think number one, people must invest in, whether it's through trainings, mentoring, workshops, coaches, establish strong communication skills and understand how to build human to human connection. Once you can do that, public speaking, speeches, pitches, proposals, negotiations become way easier because the structure is in your head. And public speaking is a form of that expression.
And
That's what
that's,
I believe.
sorry, but that's beautiful what you said, because I used to say to people I know, people don't know me, I always say that the stage is the cherry at the top of the cake.
Yeah.
All the work starts way before getting there, because once you get the work done, the stage is just the pleasure and the fun of being there.
Yeah,
The work
it's
starts.
actually the stage is being able to exponentially increase your connection with people. But if you're not able to build that connection with one person, why on earth would it work with 500 people in the room? First, we need to know how to engage and win, not win, but like win the heart, get the interest of that one person. Being on stage is multiplying that by 20, 2,000, or 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, my big question to you is, because many out there have the skills and have the preparation, is dedicated. However, you know, it's a very competitive market to be in if you want to really step on stage professionally.
Yeah.
And you have done it very well, because I have been following you in the background, not stalking you, but following you. And can you give all of us some tips? What was your strategy when you decided, okay, that's what I want to do? What were your steps to get there?
So I've already been thinking about this in detail, and I'm going to have a webinar in July where maybe I'm going to really get into it. But I think the number one thing that I noticed a pattern in myself, and every single time anyone asks me this question, I ask them the same. Every time you are on stage, whether it's in front of like 5 people in a room or a big stage with 500 or more, 5,000, how many times does it happen that someone comes up to you and asks you to speak at another stage? That's your number one measure of success. And if it might sound rather confrontational, but I truly believe in it because this is how I measure my success. Is if someone at the end of my talk has not been coming up and saying, I would love for you to speak at this other event we've organized, or, you know, we're thinking of that. Would you actually, I know someone who would be fantastic for you. This is an event organizer somewhere in the world. Can I connect you to? If they're not doing that, then you have to question what you're saying. So my first strategy was to make sure that everything I put out there is strong enough that I know for at least 80% of me knows that, or I know that 80% of whatever I'm putting out, it will get me the reaction I want. I don't do cold calls. I don't have any strategy with sales. Someone asked me, I loved it actually because I was so flattered. Someone asked me if I have like a PR person because how are you getting these opportunities? I was like, I wish I had a PR person. I'd be doing a lot more, or perhaps, yeah, doing a lot more. I don't. But what happened is literally, I spoke at a stage somewhere. Someone from Shell was in the room. They said, "Oh, you know, this is something that I would love to have in our HR event." They invited me. Then they said, "Oh, we'd love to have this in our leadership event." They invited me. It literally grew like that to one day going to Shell London. Uh, every single time that you speak on stage, the number one strategy you follow is your measure of success. See how every time you speak, how many people are coming up to you and asking you to speak for like paid for gigs. And if you're not getting it, then I'm going to question your content or your style. As you say, you know, you're a public speaking trainer. So what is it that you're saying in your content or your delivery that's not getting people to think, wow, this is really worth of so much value. And this is just one nugget. So much, this was so fantastic, just one nugget. I can't wait to hear what all she or he has to say, or what they can advise me, or what I can learn from them. So I would really question the basic core information and style that you're putting it out there with. How are you teasing people's minds to make yourself irresistible to them to come and ask you for more?
And that's very interesting, because also that for me, I the way I translate it is, you really know the audience you're talking to. So you really know what's the value you're bringing to them. So then they react positively to that. That's a very important point.
Yeah, if I don't have people coming up to me and saying, fantastic, oh, you know, could you speak at our event, or could we do this? If I don't get that, then I feel like I didn't do a good job.
Mm.
I might feel good, but realistically speaking, I haven't made someone think that there is true value in this, the exchange of knowledge, where their event or their company will benefit from my insights. It is an exchange of value. So if I don't get that, that means that my value hasn't shown enough. So I always keep my fingers crossed that every single time I do something, my value shows. That's the only way you can measure your success. And this is the strongest growth strategy, because this is core. This is not paying someone to like your things like on social media. This is not fake words of, everything here is organic. And especially when you're starting out, I always tell people, when you're starting out professionally, those direct word of mouth recommendations are priceless. They are 10 times more worth than the paycheck you will get from that company. So really make sure that your first degree network is solid, that they completely believe in you. And they will see value in you such that they invite you to speak at events, whatever. But that is extremely important. If you don't have that, then I would question, what is the information you're putting out there, and how are you delivering it, and why is it not creating that kind of click? Because there is money in the world.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and as a measurement, that's very interesting. But I see, from what you're telling me, that you speak more in companies environment, or more private event.
Both actually. So I speak at a lot of conferences, but a lot of private company events.
Yeah, because I have in my community, I have many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Therefore, their opportunities, their speaking opportunities will be more at events that
Yeah.
are related to startups, or anything related to innovation, pitch,
Yeah.
and etc. So I believe, from what you're saying here, that when you speak in a company event, you have um, maybe the audience you have there have more potential to be someone who can indicate you to another company's event. What do you think?
No, absolutely not. I don't mean that. If that's the impression I give, then I take it back. First of all, it depends on who's your audience. I mean, corporate is a very fancy word, but I think the word corporate is dying out, honestly. The lifespan of most companies is shrinking by 50%. Most of the Fortune 500 companies are going to die out. They're going into mergers, joint ventures to save their lives. So really, what is the future and who is your audience? Corporate might sound like a fancy word, but if your target audience is entrepreneurs and business owners, then go for that. Sometimes we so crave something we don't want, but actually the entire time, you had an audience ready and waiting to pay for you, drooling to wait till you gift them your nuggets of wisdom. But we're just focusing on something else because it sounds cool. But honestly, like, I would say, first understand who is your target customer, client, whatever you call them. What do they really need? How are you and why are you the right person to fulfill that need? And follow that channel. I mean, it's easy to say corporate, but then my question to all those entrepreneurs you're talking about would be, why do you need to speak at a corporate? What kind of corporate? Corporate can be shipping, corporate can be a .com, corporate can be a blockchain company, corporate can be a construction company, corporate can be a delivery service goods company. So corporate is a very generic word. What do you want to speak about in these company events? And why would people who are working behind their desk from 9 to 5, doing repetitive jobs, nothing like an entrepreneurial job, but why would they benefit from listening to your ideas? It's good to explore this. I personally love innovation conferences because this is the future. Every company right now is like, oh, let's do more innovation, let's innovate. So I think innovation is fantastic. And people who are speaking at innovation conferences, I don't know if they're getting paid, but if they are, hey, good for you. You're doing really well. That's the future. So I personally don't see anything wrong with it. And every time you speak at a startup conference, you are speaking to 50% of the audience who are investors, partners, and VCs. If you do a good job over there, that means that investor company will hire you to come speak at their event. But then that depends on how good of a job you do.
Excellent. Very good insight there. No, very good insight.
Yeah.
No, and now the golden question. If someone wants to become professional, a speaker, like meaning getting paid to speak, what are the strategies that you used?
So number one I did was I started creating content, and I was really focused on strong content. It's very easy to become outdated within the snap of a finger these days. There's information overload where with online, offline, everything. So it's very, very easy to be outdated. So don't be generic and don't do things because other people are successful. Really invest in your phenomenal idea and concepts and solutions that are just will blow the minds away of people, that they can't help but want to talk to you. Like, I always say that another way of me to measure my success or to measure whether I'm going professional, that back in the day, was how many people were wanting to have coffee with me. The Netherlands has a coffee culture. So for me, the more number of people want to have coffee with me, I think the more interest I'm generating. If nobody wants to have coffee with me, that means I'm not doing something right. I'm doing something really wrong. I got to pull up my socks. So number one is start understanding your target base, your core. The second thing, now this is my personal strategy. I'm sure other people did other things. When I realized that this is something I could really do more of, because slowly alongside my corporate job, the requests were increasing, I started saving a lot of money. And I made sure I saved for at least 2 years. Like, if I had to pay for myself, like bills, rent, traveling, my family lives in India. If I had to travel back to India, which is not a cheap ticket, I would be able to pay for myself for about 1.5 years comfortably without it, hitting the wallet. So that took a while to save up. And then you have and also finally, the final thing were a couple of things. It's almost like the stars align. But I think looking back, there are times in your life when the stars will align, but you got to work your ass off for it. So number one was I started saving. Number one was the content really clicked with the audience. I became popular in the Netherlands. Number three was I started saving. Number four was I saw a stream. So this was towards the end of June, towards the end of 2017. I saw a stream of income coming my way from speaking. And I could see that just with that income, I would be earning very well for the next 6 months. So on top of my savings, I could see that I would be earning well for the next 6 months through my speaking. And then, some like Huffington Post had interviewed me, that kind of, they got attention and stuff. I was like, the time is right. And then the cherry on my cake was my company said, okay, we want you to take, they gave me another role basically that I had to do, that I felt like, okay, if I take this role, I can never, ever continue a speaking career because this role will take full, complete entirety of my time. And that's when I said, I'm done. And that's the day I resigned and went professional.
It's almost as if your company was playing the devil advocate.
Yeah, like please quit the job and go professional. Looking back, what would I have done differently? Here's the thing. What would I have done differently? Maybe speaking with a local business consultant or lawyer, legal advisor in your country who can give you the nitty-gritties for starting entrepreneurs, like where all you can. I had a bookkeeper, which was lovely. I love my bookkeeper. He helps me save monies in ways I cannot imagine. But I think I would have also gone to perhaps a legal advisor or a business advisor locally from your country. Don't go international, because every country has its little nooks and crannies which can really help out entrepreneurs. What are the documents you need to be aware of? I did that a bit later. And looking back, if I would have done something differently, the time I was planning to quit, I should have gone to them. I would have gone to them, sorry.
Yeah, very interesting. Yes, especially for entrepreneurs, the legal part, we need to be very careful with that. And my next question for you would be, if you had to give an advice in general to people that are still there with the doubt if they should, or with the doubt that I'm not sure if I have the message, from your perspective, what we would say to them?
If they're not sure they have the message, like they feel they have it, but they're afraid, like exactly what are they feeling? Tell me what they're feeling.
Yeah, well, let's put it in general, because what I see that many people are afraid to, they feel they have something inside, like I see something on you, but they are not, they feel that it's doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say it anyway.
Okay. I would say that fear is a very strong signal. Oftentimes, what we're really afraid of is what we really want to do. Like even if you think of activities, things that you really are afraid of are things that you've always wanted to conquer or do just for yourself. And it's that fear is a very strong relationship with our desires. So if someone says to me that they're afraid of something, because there could have been a situation where that person just didn't care about it. Fear is an emotional reaction. So that if you're so strongly reacting to a certain career situation, which could be totally boring and technical, but you're reacting so strongly to it, to me that says that you care about it somewhere. You can't sleep without thinking about it. It's in your mind. Okay, it's in your mind. That's great. And the second thing then is, how badly do you want to conquer it? How badly do you want it? Going with that, the third thing I would say is, if you start pursuing it and you fall on your face and it hurts, and you feel the pain and the pain in your ego, the pain in your self-esteem, and maybe you cry, because I have cried a couple of times in my life. But the next day you wake up and you realize you want it 10 times more and you will not give up. This is it. Because if something can break you and make you feel so sad and pained, or feel like, okay, this is never going to work, but still you want it so bad, that means this is something that is life-changing. Never ever give it up. If something has the power to make you hurt, that means that something is really powerful. You never give that up. You take it and you embrace it. You embrace every single thing it throws at you, and it will take you places you never thought could be real.
This is so beautiful what you said. And this, now, my last question for you is, what wannabes, professionals, speakers, they should prepare when they want to approach a company or an event promoter? What do they have to have?
The thing that make, like, where I turn them around to 100% confirmed, or maybe 99.9% confirmed, is the phone call. That's actually the time when they decide. And I can tell you that out of 100 calls that I may get, 99 of them say yes. But not because, oh, I'm so fantastic or anything. That's not my point. The point is, the way you share your idea can be so touching and amazing and fascinating that they fall in love with the idea, and you, at the end of the day, become just a medium. Now, what can people do to be able to ace this, I would say, of course, take, for example, you give public speaking trainings. That's fantastic. So do public speaking trainings if that's not your comfort zone. Even if you're a strong speaker or writer or whatever, run your content through your friends and family or other network of like and unlike minds. If you only stick to people who are like you will never know what it's like to be unlike you. So get your content reviewed. If you're giving a speech or a pitch sometime, make sure you, I always say your first draft is the worst of all. Never show your first draft to the client or on stage. So if the thing that you're going on stage with is something that only you have seen, unfortunately, I think that's like the most raw version of it. And just with one discussion with a coach or a mentor or a trainer or a friend or anyone with interesting insights, they can really elevate your content to the next level. So yes, do your preparation and don't give up.
I'm gonna take a little bit advantage of you because just something it took into my mind, but I promise it's the last question.
No problem. I'm
Uh,
loving the questions.
do you have one main, as they call the signature talk, and you have your variations around it, or you prepare several different topics?
Right now, I think I'm doing three. The
Mm-hmm.
most requests I get are for the one that becomes like an extended workshop, training, longer speech. It's the Transform Exponential speech. And I've created that recently. It's just going really well. So every time I speak, give that talk, people just come and ask me to do the same talk at their event. I'm like, don't you want something else? And they're like, no, do the same thing. For me, that's great. That means that, they say strike when the right rod is hot. So, and I want to say this, so don't mind me saying, but milk that freaking cow, okay? Milk your cow. Your speech is a cow, milk that cow dry. So every single time that I give my speech, I use it. You're starting fires. The intent of giving a talk is to start fires. And then what are you going to do with all this ignition and all this fire and heat in the room? Then you have to think is, do I want them to hire me as a trainer, as a speaker, as a consultant, as a coach, as a mentor? But you have to think of where you can offer them best value or what value they see in you. But yes, it looks like some of my talks are really hitting it well. I think this summer I'm going to work on another talk, like fine tuning it, making sure that things aren't boring for the repeat audiences. I keep changing every 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
But having said that, this is like a standard stage talk. But every time I do a conference or an event, they might have very different themes. Like, for example, one corporate is shipping corporate, but the other one could be like makes shoes or makes phones. So you have to fine tune it based on their needs and what kind of profile I have in the room and how it's going to serve them best. But maybe the message remains the same. Yeah.
That was what I thought, because in what you said, milk that cow, because you
Yeah.
have there's this core that is the topic that you love to talk about.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like that we feel that we are boring them, but we are not, because it's just because we talk about that many times, but in fact it's the message that they were really to have and to receive.
One final thing that I want to say, maybe since we're talking about speeches, it just struck my mind is majority of people who are starting out, they think that they have to speak only about themselves. And I always say this, that in your keynote speech is not a inspirational, oh, look at me, I was no one and look who I am now speech. Unless it's really, really something that you did that people want to learn from you. You don't have to always show yourself as the hero of the, yes, every one of us is a hero, but if you're going to use your story, let it be a supporting cast. Let the idea be the hero. Let the focus and everything be on making that idea fascinating for your audience and not, oh, look what I did and look who I am now. So many times I see that. I perhaps used to do that too when I started off, but I did notice that the more people are only talking about themselves, they're not talking enough about the idea. They're not using other real world industry examples that can benefit people. Your measure of success is not when you inspire the audience. Our measure of success is when they go back to their desk on a Monday morning, haggled and tired with a coffee cup in their hands, and they can apply some changes in their life. That is our measure of success, not the inspiration at the event and not the paycheck we get. So think of your measure of success very carefully. That's what I would tell budding speakers, I think.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom with us, because we always learn from a different perspective, different experience. I've been this journey maybe even longer than you, but through a different path.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from you here today, and I'm
Oh my God.
sure the community will appreciate that. And thank you so much again
Thank
for spending your time with us with this lovely summer day that we are having here.
you. Lovely. Thank you.